My hat had flown off in the whole mess, and now my hair was hanging down over my forehead, tickling my nose and getting in my eyes. I was breathing hard, trying to wipe that molten stuff off of my hand. I took a rag out of my back pocket and just raked my fingers against it. The pain was so intense, I didn't even think to wrap my hand or nothing. After going at it for a few seconds, my skin felt weird, and my breaths blowing against the wound struck up this horrible stinging. It ran from nerve to nerve all the way up my forearm. At least for now, the pain was going away. I guess I got most of the stuff off of me, and I nudged the rag away from me, trying not to make contact with that gunk again. Before I could do anything else, I felt my chest give out. I was out of breath, I guess. My arms felt so heavy and my hand felt really hot. I laid there, panting into the dark. Hundreds of tiny white dots were dancing in front of my eyes, coming out of the dark and then disappearing back in. I must have given all the energy I had, because I don't think I'd ever actually seen stars from being tired before. Thought that kind of thing only happened in cartoons. Behind the wispy gasps I was letting out, I could hear the pool water lapping against the concrete shore. Something wet was wriggling onto the edge of the tile floor. It slapped around from one spot to another, and I realized that that monster was looking for me. I slowly dragged myself over to the nautical spotlight. Getting a handle on it, I pointed it out towards the pool. The thing was gone. There was a wide puddle of water where it had landed on me, and I could see darker puddles of the slop it was spilling out. I didn't want to move too quickly, but I was already confident that I could get a little closer. So I picked myself up, wincing a little from the strain on my fingers. I took the injured hand into my armpit and walked over real slowly. I was prepared to jump back at any second, not wanting to get surprised and end up underneath that damn thing. I pointed the beam of my light out at the center of the pool, and there it was. It was drifting away from me now, slowly as it was before. It lazily dragged itself along, and I watched as the front of it dipped under the water. Then, the rest of it followed. It disappeared into that black pit of grey water without so much as a splash. A cloud of waterlogged trash and debris spread out from the depths in its wake. Then it was gone. I didn't bother washing the paint. I don't even think that needs saying. I didn't grab the battery or the light, but I unfurled the wires as to not start a fire or something like that. Not easy to do with a bum hand, dopey. I spent so much time in the dark that when I opened the doors and looked out at the orange field of snow, it nearly blinded me. A sea of white, colored in by those giant field lights at either side of the property. I didn't lock the place up. I didn't even remember to grab my hat. I just stepped out into the night and just didn't stop walking, the cold biting at the soaked bits of my shirt and pants. When I got back inside the rec center, the ventilation unit was going crazy, filling the whole place with warm air. It kinda gave me a shock, going from warm to cold to warm again, and I felt a little sick. I didn't even make it to the reception desk, Conrad. I just collapsed onto the floor and laid back against the wall. There was a pit in my stomach, and it never really went away. I can still feel it now, as I'm writing this. I think it came from that smell, when that thing leapt up at me. It was so obnoxiously strong and horrible that I was ready to spill my guts. Something like rotted fish and sweet motor oil. That's the best I can give you. It's just about beyond words. I knew that I couldn't fall asleep, but I was so drained that my eyelids were fighting me for an hour or two of rest. The rest of the night was just as quiet as any other. I didn't finish my rounds, and I didn't even clock out for lunch. I stayed put, trying to stay awake. I looked at all those black and white pictures hung up on the wall, there in the hallway. Different people from different times. Some dead by now, probably. I thought about how many years this place has stood around, and how many people have worked here and been in the building. How many years that old pool house stood in its muck and ruin and watched it all. Those big windows staring out at these generations of people getting old and being born, and all the while something horrible and hungry was growing inside its walls. Years of mice and garbage feeding it until it was big enough to eat something bigger. Something like that kid from the other night. Maybe he heard it splashing around. Maybe he walked over to check out the noise. Then it would have blindly grabbed whatever it could and tried to pull him into that corroded black soup. I thought about that kid's face, and how much of the muscle and bone in his head was right out in the open. I thought about how the same black stuff I'd seen leaking from his face was eating at my hand only a few minutes ago. I slowly pulled my hand out from my armpit, and it hurt to even do that much. I unfurled my fist, and I was hit with immediate agony. But it was nothing to seeing what had happened. My forefinger and middle finger were blistered to the bone. They didn't even look real. The tips were worn down, and now I could see the bright red flesh coiled around the tip of the bone. They were inflamed, cracked, and bleeding all the way up to the knuckle. I might as well not even have them anymore. They stung in the open air, and I held them again to stop the pain. When opening time was about an hour away, I got up. I'm home now, and just left after locking the place up. I haven't even taken my uniform off yet. I have school in a couple of hours, but I don't know if I'm going to go. If you were here, I'm sure you'd give me hell for even thinking of skipping. I should be at the hospital, or even calling the cops. But what am I going to say? What are they going to do? Believe that a living blanket of stomach acid is lurking at the bottom of a pool house? Am I going to pay for that doctor's bill with what I'm getting paid? I'll just wrap it up with some Neosporin and some gauze. I miss you, Dopey. I'm so tired and I'm so scared. Everything around me seems like it's not even really there. The couch, the TV, the cops, that kid. None of it weighs the same as it did in my head just a little while ago. There's just Mimi, sitting on the arm of my sofa. She's staring at me. Probably smells the oven-baked pizza I tossed in an hour ago. I'm sure she's hungry. I'm so scared, Conrad. I feel so alone. Not just in this house or in Weinwick. I feel hollow and bleached, like I've been sitting in the sun too long. I think I'll go to school. I don't want to be alone right now. Miss you, Dopey. Jed. 8/22/1995. Vince called today. He called yesterday too, but I didn't answer. I didn't come for my shift last night. I didn't even call out. I was just nodding off at school all day yesterday, trying to stay awake. I didn't, though, and I got a one-way ticket to the principal's office for it. She didn't really mind me falling asleep at all, though. She was nice enough to send me home, actually. You know, I think she was worried about me working at night all the time. She asked about my hand, but I told her it was nothing. She kept coming back around to it, though, even asking if me and Vince had been hanging out. I told her no, but I don't think she bought it. She told me that if something were to happen, then I could come in sometime to talk about it. Well, now that you mention it, there's this Frankenstein monster hiding in the pool house at my job, and at night it got a nibble of my fingers. And the other night, it ate a kid's face right off. Do you think I could get a number for a shrink or maybe a paranormal exterminator? Boy, wouldn't that be a laugh. Now that I'm a little more awake, I think she was thinking Vince had done something to me. A little weird for sure, but it's not like Vince is really known for running around ripping skin off fingers. But she was real insistent. It was kind of neat to see that she really cared about me and how I was doing. She let me go with a cheery little smile and I left. You know, I know that these past few days have been a real headache, but I don't think I'm crazy. I mean, I've got monsters and dead kids on the brain, but I'm not seeing things. I'm still pretty on the books, you know? So check this. As I was walking out of that place, pulling on my shades to keep my eyes from bugging out in the sunlight, I could have sworn I saw Vince's truck outside in the parking lot. I was off to the side of the soccer field, parked away a little ways, away from the street. I stood there for a second, but I didn't see Vince at all. No cheesy dyed hair in sight. But there was this kid kicking back against the grill. He was tall and was covered head to toe in denim. I mean, this kid was straight out of that Outsiders movie, greasy hair, waving around in the breeze. He was lanky and his face was beet red with bad acne. He was wearing this heavy metal t-shirt and looked real shy. He didn't go to school here. No way. He had to be older. Maybe he was with Vince or something? But he looked nasty, that's for sure. The kind of guy you and me used to make fun of when you would pick me up from school or from the arcade. He didn't look towards me though, at least not at first. That's when I hear the back of the gate to the soccer field open up. There's two guys, one bigger than the other, walking out towards the truck. It's Vince. He was in a collared polo t-shirt and leather jacket with his hair freshly slicked back. He was holding hands with this other fella though. The guy had to be my age for sure. Big, poofy red hair, a backpack slung over his shoulder. He was really good looking, dressed in ripped jeans and a tight t-shirt. I think I remember him from a class or something. He was grinning ear to ear and I think they were laughing together. This kid is looking up at Vince like he's the Mona Lisa, just basking in him. They get to the truck and Vince helps the kid into the passenger side seat. The other guy is looking at me now. He doesn't look happy either. He's just eyeing me up and down whilst Vince heads in and the truck roars to start. The greaseball turns, climbing into the back of the pickup. He's settling in and leaning against the back of the cab, and the truck pulls out. He keeps looking at me, giving me the fucking creeps. Just as they turn to the main street, he looks away, wind blowing his silky black rug all around. Fuck me, I don't even want to start getting into whatever that was. Let's say this kid is my age, and let's say I do know him from some class. What the hell is he doing out of school? I got a freebie, but I didn't see anybody come in to check him out of class at the office. So this kid must have just skipped, met up with Vince and hightailed it out of there. Maybe Vince has a new lackey or something, whatever. I'm all for Vince having new friends as long as I'm not one of them. But what about this wannabe Dallas Winston? This metalhead looked like a crackhead out of trailer park hell. Now they're probably off somewhere, firing up fun at the arcade or jacking around in town. Bunch of fucking weirdos. Fuck, I hate this place, Con. Anyway, so I spent the past however many hours passed out on the sofa with the curtains drawn. I think my body is too well trained for this job because I woke up pretty early before I usually start. Remembering I had the night off, I was already tucking myself back in for a few more hours of rest. That was when I got Vince's call. He sounded a lot different from how I thought he would. He wasn't so much pissed, he was more upset and worried. At first I thought he might have been sweating all day thinking about me, but I should have known better. He didn't ask how I was or why I hadn't called back earlier. He wanted to know if I still had the key ring. He said that Cassandra came by in yesterday morning and had to open up with her spare. He was begging me to head back in and bring them in, saying that he needed them to do the rounds tonight. Now, ain't that something? 2 years at the rec and never have I ever seen Vince take the rounds. He's always home before 8 o'clock, never bothers to cover them on my days off. He was really breathing heavily the whole time too, really badgering on about how badly he needed them back at the rec center. There was another voice in the back too. It was soft, almost like a girl's. But Cassandra isn't even scheduled today. Boy, this whole thing is going off the rails. I'll head out in an hour or so, get my clothes on and walk them over. I'm so sick of everything. I thought I'd feel better by now, maybe I just needed sleep. But between my hand and those ghosts passing through my head, I feel even worse. Your own personal, real-life monster attack survivor. Jed. 8/22/1995, 12:38 a.m. This place feels so plastic lately. The cheap chairs, the silly little pictures on the silly little walls, and the stupid smells. I feel plastic too. I feel like a picture that's not coloured in. Everything about everything I do is just so empty and small. You're out there doing the best you can, probably on your way to being a teacher or something. There's kids around town shooting the shit with friends, seeing movies and stuff. But I'm all alone. I work, I sleep, I go to school. Rip the page out and start again, over and over and over. You and them, you've all got your own movies going on. Climaxes and stuff. Girlfriends and real life things going on. But I'm a paper cutout, dopey. I'm only 17, and I already feel like I'm on my way out. Shit, I'm even down 2 fingers now, too. Guess it doesn't matter too much. Not to real folks like you. I'm not doing anything. There's no big plan going on over here. You've got college buddies and class, but I'm stuck here, back home with monsters. God, listen to me moping like a bleeding heart Shakespeare guy. Anyway, Vince wasn't at the desk when I came by the rec center earlier. Shit, the place looked dead as I walked up to the doors, but they were open, and I stood there with the keys in my hand, looking around for my slophead cousin so I could get back to doing my routine of nothing. He wasn't around though. Still, the place was almost dead quiet, but then I heard this voice on the other side of the room. Nearly jumped out of my skin. I turned around to see this fella sitting down quietly on the lobby chairs. It was that kid I saw, the one holding hands with Vince. He was staring up at me, doe-eyed, his hair all nice and done up. He was dressed to the nines as well. White sneakers and a Sleater Kenny t-shirt. He looked meek and small. Vince's giant leather jacket stretched around his shoulders. He just said hi. His voice caught me off guard. It was soft. I think I might have heard him in the background of Vince's phone call from earlier. I stood there like an idiot, mouth open and eyes wide.
Hi, are you Jedediah?
Yeah? Yeah, I'm Jed.
Oh, well, Vinny's been looking for you. I'm, Darby. I think I know you from school. Maybe we share a class together?
He was almost shaking. He looked like he was waiting in that spot for a hot minute, but he was trying not to let that show, I think. He seemed really nice. Oh, I don't remember. Sorry. I'm always half awake most days.
I'm sorry, are you feeling okay?
He seemed to be sweet, almost. I don't know. It's weird to talk about another guy that way, but I don't know. He was wearing makeup too, I think, but I don't really know for sure. If not, he was just naturally that pretty. Well, yeah, I'm good. I'm solid. I mean, I'm okay. He just kind of laughed, but not really in a mean way. You grabbing these for Vince? Is he here? I can just hand them off to him. But he shook his head, laughing again and pointing down the hallway.
No, I think he's in his office. I'm just waiting for him. We're trying to catch a movie later.
I didn't say goodbye or anything as I walked away, but I did give him an awkward thank you as I waddled down and around the corner. God, I'm such a tool. I couldn't think of anything to say. I just got kinda detoured by looking at him. Trying to ignore how awkward I was, I took a beeline to the office door, seeing it wide open with the light on inside. A shadow was cast on the wall opposite, showing the hunkered shape of someone inside, hovering over Vince's desk. I peeked inside, and there was my cousin. His hair was drawn back, but several strands were hanging over his eyes. He looked sick, pale as a sheet, and his shirt was yellow under the armpits. And when I say there was a waterfall coming down his forehead, I mean it. He had both hands around the handle of a screwdriver, the end stuck in the lip of the filing cabinet. His sleeves were rolled up, and I could see bright pink marks freshly scraped into his underarm. His veins were popping out of his skin almost, putting everything he had into getting that cabinet open. There's not really a proper way to go about intruding like I was about to, so I just drifted in, staring at my shoes. The whole air around him felt nasty, and it was shooting up my nose and filling my head. I felt like a kid whose parents was about to chew out their ears. But he didn't notice me at first, only looking up when he heard the keyring jingling in my hand. He looked up at me with his lip curled like a dog with rabies. He took half a second to fix his face, dropping the screwdriver on the floor and running up to grab the keys. As he snapped them out of my hand, I only managed to whisper, "A few rounds, sorry it took me a minute." But he ignored me, jabbing the smallest key into the cabinet as fast as he could. He slung the thing open with a weird gasp, and I flinched at the loud clanging noise the drawer made as it clanged open. He was wrist deep in manila folders before I could say anything else, but he stopped fiddling around and pulled out a folded rag. He started unwrapping it with this fire in his eye, almost growling as he got it open to see nothing. A thin plastic wrapper and a bread tie fell from the cloth, landing on the desk. We both stared at it, only him knowing what the hell was going on. His face had dropped. He was frowning up a storm, and I could see tears welling up in his eyes. He dropped the cloth with an exhausted moan, and grabbed at the sides of his head with his hands, taking deep, quiet breaths. He looked at me, as if he just realized I was there at all. "Huh? What's up?" I just stuttered out something about the rounds, telling him that I just came by to drop off the keys. He nodded, but with this weird look, like he had no idea what I was on about. He nodded over and over again, staring at the floor. He was trying to keep up appearances, but something was tearing him up inside. That was when I heard the knock at the door behind me. I turned real quick, already pretty on edge and very confused. I met eyes with two ice-cold orbs stuck above the puffy, acne-ridden face. A mean-looking face, too. It was that guy, the one that was kicking back against Vince's truck. His black, greasy mop still hanging over his ears and parting around his forehead. He had on this King Diamond t-shirt and a scrappy denim jacket with Sherpa on the collar. There were cigarette burns up and down the sleeves and a fresh Marlboro tucked behind his ear. He was looking down at me like he'd stepped in dog shit, and I probably didn't put up much of a poker face. I was too floored to say anything, but I heard Vince chirp up behind me. "Hey, Barney, glad to see your uppercut. You're in luck tonight." Barney turned over to Vince, and didn't look on him much better than he did me. He moved his mouth like he had to spit, and was really hanging on to his tough guy attitude. "You needin' then?" Vinny just nodded, both of them seemingly carrying on despite me standing there with my mouth open. "Yeah, I'm up the creek, bud. You're not hanging on to that idea you had, are you?" Barney slipped a hand around the door frame, turning to look down the hallway toward the lobby. "Yeah, you're still down from last week, unless we're talking twice to what we did before. There's one way to cover both. I knew you wouldn't have any on reserve, snowball like you." Vince chuckled. He was pacing back and forth, stopping and taking breaths when he had pieced together whatever was going on in his head. He looked up, giving me this defeated look, like he'd lost a house in a game of poker. I slipped my hands into my pockets, just keeping my head down. "Yeah, okay, Barney. We can run it your way. Just let me grab my coat. I'll tell Darby you're coming with us. Just let me talk to him beforehand. I'll do it when we get to the drive-in. You got it with you?" Barney nodded, and even in the corner of my eye, I could see that pizza face split in a wide smile. He patted at his coat pocket with his hand. Vince clapped his hand together, making way to the door. As he passed me by, I caught the ring of keys as he tossed them to me. "Not asking you to take the shift, kiddo. Just lock the place up after we leave. I'll see you tomorrow." With that, they both strode out of the room together, moving like a pair of lions on a TV documentary. I could hear Barney laugh a little, his evil chuckle echoing back to me down from the hall. I just stood there a minute, not wanting to join the group for more awkward silence. I was more comfortable with just myself, sitting under a flickering fluorescent light overhead. I waited until I heard the door to the lobby swing shut and stood in the empty building all by myself. I don't know what I was thinking, but I remember being really pissed off. All these things I do, all these stupid little things, and I'm given nothing for it. There are whole scenes playing around me, movies playing right off the screen, everyone getting to be their own Indiana Jones or Luke Skywalker. And I'm just a sidekick, left somewhere on the back of the cutting room floor. But I had my keys. No one was there to stop me. They were heavy inside my palm, weighing almost as much as this whole mystery shit on my mind. I walked over to the desk and wrenched the cabinet open again. There were piles of manila folders, all thick with incident reports, absent notices, and pages of nothing. But flipping to the very back and reaching down to the bottom of the tray, I felt my 2 bandaged fingers graze the shell of something small and long. I fumbled for it a bit, trying to grab it without straining my hand too bad. It took a minute, but when I pulled it out into the light, I was even more confused. It was a thin glass syringe, the plunger flush against the mouth of the needle. A pasty brown puddle swished side to side as I held the thing. The insides was stained with dried brown gunk, and I gagged a bit. So this was Vince's movie. His big manifesto, all bright, shiny, and with some whacked-out drug running through his bloodstream. You know, I'm more of a straight shooter. I'm not too full of info on this kind of stuff. But I like to think I know something bad when I see it. There was that feeling again, like a match on the back of my neck. Only now I gave in and dropped the needle. I felt like a kid who just walked in on their parents, and I wanted to wash my hands immediately after it hit the floor and shattered onto the concrete. So this is what Vince does, with his time, and with his college degree, and with his nice big truck. What a fucking waste. I closed the door behind me, but left the mess I made. Fuck, I hoped he'd find it. I walked slow to the reception desk to head out and lock the doors. As I twisted the key in the lock and pulled at it to make sure I'd done it right, I turned to see Vince's truck rev to life in the parking lot. Barney stood in the bed as it swung around to head down to the driveway. I caught Darby's smile as they drove past me, waving at me as they left. He seemed really nice. Then I was alone, walking back to my shack. Now I'm home, shooting down episodes of unsolved mysteries to keep me awake. Mimi's here, brushing against my hand, so I'll pet her instead of gluing my face to the rest of this blank page. You know, I don't think I'm going to be here for much longer. Don't jump the gun here, Conrad. I'm not going to off myself. At least, I hope I don't end up dead soon. But all this stuff, all this electric air about the town and between Vince and you and me and that thing in the pool, is dragging me somewhere I really didn't like. But I think I'm starting to get it now. There's a shining somewhere in my head. I want to do more. I want to have my own things going on. I'm tired of being alone, and I don't think it's fair that I'm waiting on you to come back for me to be happy again. I have no family here. None that I care about anymore. Whatever happens, little Mimi is coming with me. But I think I need to set a course for something. There's all sorts of tutors and advanced placement classes I could be shooting for before graduation. I think I'm going to go to uni. Maybe with you, up there with Eugene, or maybe somewhere else. I don't know. Isn't that fun? Seeing that guy Darby gave me this wanting, like for another person in my life. Someone to help out with the bad stuff going on, and someone who really likes me. There's so much to do, but it's nothing compared to staying here any longer. I'm getting out. I'm starting my own little movie. But before I pack my bags, there's a fat, smelly blob of stomach acid that needs to be taken care of. Believe it or not, I'm more scared of it than leaving Weinwick. Let me get some math together. I'm gonna need something to end this thing. What that is, I'm not really sure. There's gasoline, but I don't want to burn the whole forest down with the pool house. Although, I wouldn't mind wiping that shack off the face of the earth. Though I would gather a few odd looks from anyone if I was seen dragging a couple of gasoline cans back to the rec center. I don't know. I think I would get the job done, but it seems like a final cavalry kind of thing. I just know what to do. Can't just leave that thing there, eating kids up and mice. It would sit there, waiting. Shit, it'd probably spent its whole life that way. How many teens have gotten in there? Out to have some fun with no one knowing where they were. Hell, all those stories about that church in the woods. And here we already got a real flesh and blood nightmare. What about that Aegon kid from a few years back? Maybe he went out to tag up the pool house, and that's why he dropped off the face of the earth. I don't know, but I can't just let it lie like that. It's mine now. My responsibility. I can't do what I need to do whilst it's lurking under the water. I'll keep you posted while I think of something. Jed. 8/23/1995. 4:30 a.m. 4:30 a.m. Oh boy, do I have a plan for you, buckaroo. I've been mulling this over in my head for the past few hours, trying to get down to brass tacks. I've got 2 cups of coffee sitting in my stomach and a list of things in my head, but I think I've got it. Tonight I'm heading to the rec. This is going to be my last night in that place. I'm leaving a resignation letter on Vince's desk, and I hope he has to write out the rest of my scheduled shifts. I'm not going to mop up the bathrooms, no wiping sweat from the gym seats, no security walk. I won't even clock in. I still have the keys, so every inch of the rec center is my playground. Once I get in, I'm going to pay a little visit to the maintenance shed. In the corner, I know there's that stack of chlorine buckets. I'll dust them off and take them to the pool house. Now that pool hasn't been touched for so long, that blanket in there will probably have no way of dealing with actual pool chemicals. Let me explain where I'm at. When I was little, I remember playing around in my mum's garden. I was on pest duty, I guess. My job was to nab any katydids or snails that might be slinking around the roses. Now, I'd catch a good 4 or 5 of these snails, and I'd keep them in a jar. I'd take them to my mama's, and she'd open up the lid. She took down a salt shaker and just let the little things have it. I'm not really a fan of doing that kind of thing to little helpless critters like that, but it got me thinking. If salt can boil up a snail, then why can't chlorine do the same thing to that monster? I mean, it's kind of a big slug if you think about it. At least, I think it's like a slug. But if it's anything close to one of those little snails, then this is the ticket. No fuss, no mess. It'll just melt away. I can sleep better tonight knowing it's gone. I'll stay a couple of hours, bring a few sodas or something. I'll stay to see what happens, and if it doesn't work, then I'll be back to square one. If I have to torch the place, I'm not going to shed any tears. But if I can stay out of the eyes of Sheriff Gerald, I'll take the quietest road I can. That's it. That's the meat of it. Oof, what a way to spend a couple of hours. I'm a regular Van Helsing dopey. Maybe I can get a job like this, taking out boogeymen all over the country. Then again, maybe one is enough for me. Luckily, the rec is empty right now, and I've got plenty of time to take care of business. I'm already feeling better, but I would be lying to say I'm not terrified of going. If I take care of myself in there and stay away from the edge of the water, I should be fine. Mimi's looking over here again, pacing back and forth. You think cats know when something's up? I hope not. Last thing I need is to worry about that little lady. I'm gonna wrap up my uniform in a shopping bag and bring it with me. It'll be nice to dump the thing on Vince's desk. Wish me luck, dopey. Jed.